What is up, everybody? Welcome to AK Plays. I'm AK. Let's play. Alright, everybody, today we're going to be talking about PvE, more specifically all of the missions in Division 2, the storyline, everything about it, and PvE as a whole. Now, my original plan was to do individual videos for every single mission in Division 2, and selfishly that probably would have been the better move because I would have had a ton of different videos, but as someone who watches a lot of YouTube, I wouldn't like that, and so I'm not going to do that to you guys where you have to watch 30-40 minute videos every single day of every little mission. Instead, I'm just going to pack it all into one 10-minute video and give you an overall review. I feel like that's just time saving for you guys, and it's just easier for me too because I want to be able to talk about all of it with a position of knowledge. If I did that every single mission as I completed the missions, I feel like I wouldn't have had the amount of knowledge that I do at this point. At this point, I've completed all of the PvE. I'm up to the point where I'm ready for World Tier 5. My character's at gear score like 445, almost 450, depending what gear I put on. And I'm at a point now where I feel comfortable talking about the PvE as a whole, and I'm excited to start talking about PvP because I'm finally just getting into it. I've been grinding this game like crazy, and I feel like it's finally getting to the point where I'm able to start doing PvP, and that's, of course, my favorite part. So, on to our main topic, which is the PvE. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is this mission you see going on right now, the miniguns. These things are my absolute favorite part about PvE in the Division 2. Now, I love them, I think they're so much fun, and I've been having a blast using them. Now, the missions don't give you a ton of opportunities to use them, but the control points absolutely do. It feels like the developers purposefully put them at the control points to mow down crowds of NPCs, and it's a ton of fun. It's really cool. Not a lot of games do this where they just let you tee off on the NPCs with a minigun, so it was pretty fun. Now, all you're watching in the background is a compilation of all of the different missions, just little snippets from each. They're like okay clips. It's nothing like a highlight tape or anything. I could never make a PvE highlight tape, but it is kind of just like the interesting things. It shows a little bit of the scenery, and I tried not to give away mission details. I feel like it's a little spoilery if I start putting in like actual plot points, but I'm not going to really cover that either in this video. I'm just going to talk about the PvE in a general sense and the missions in a general sense. So, on to that. The PvE overall is solid. I was actually pretty surprised because in the betas it was kind of iffy. And of course it still has its iffy moments, and of course there's still bugs and issues that they're working out. This is a very new game, and we're expecting them to have little things that they need to iron out during the first couple of weeks. So yes, the NPCs sometimes disappear and they glitch out, sometimes they hit you when they're nowhere near you, and there's things like that. And that's definitely something that I can overlook just because it's the first week. As for the story was pretty intriguing. I actually found myself paying more attention to this story than I did Division 1's. Now, obviously, with the amount of time I put into Division 1, I know that story backward, forward, every single way. But the Division 2's, on my first run-through, I feel like I actually was pretty intrigued into the story, and I found myself kind of, I wouldn't say invested into the characters, but to the point where I actually noted the story's plot points and felt like, okay, that's what's going on. Usually I'm not a big PvE person. I barely pay attention. I rip through it and just try to get to the PvP. This time, yes, I still ripped through it and tried to get to PvP, but I actually paid attention, which was kind of interesting, and I liked it. I felt like I was invested in the characters and the plot points. So the actual story is very cool. I like the idea. And one thing that I thought they did a really good job of is making the missions not feel super repetitive. The one thing that was kind of a common theme that we started to joke about was that it felt like 90% of the missions were underground, in a bunker, in a tunnel, in a sewer, and yes, that kind of was a little bit of a joking point, but it's not anything that distracts. It's not a big deal, and I think that it was just like a lot of missions happened to be in a row that had that setting, because now that I look back at the footage, not that many missions were in that kind of setting. However, the missions did feel very different. It felt like they had different setups, some were ambushes, some had different elevations, they had different NPC spawn points, they spawned different types of NPCs. I felt like they did a good job with variety in this game, and it felt like the PvE didn't feel like too much of a grind, it didn't feel too boring, it felt like it was actually pretty lively. And what really took that to another level for me was the invaded missions. When they brought in the invaded missions and they had the Black Tusk take over, I thought, okay, well, time to rip through these same missions again with different enemies, but it ended up being very different. It kept continuity with the story. The missions that you were going through on the invaded levels had already shown your progress in the previous missions, and that was very interesting to me. It actually showed, like, if you blew open a door in the mission that wasn't an invaded mission, that was destroyed. Or if you blew up a gas tank, it was destroyed. Obviously not to every little detail, like if you blew up a barrel, that's going to be back. But, like the actual plot points, where if you had to do something, then that thing is still there. And I thought that was cool. And then, of course, the objectives to the missions changed, so the invaded missions actually had some variety and were different than the mission that you did in the regular story. I thought that was great attention to detail and a good job of them adding some change that made it feel interesting. So I liked that a lot. Lots of credit to them on that one. The one thing I didn't feel like is I haven't found our Lexington Event Center. I didn't find a mission that I'm like, this mission is going to be fun to grind, rip through it in 7 minutes, and get some gear. I haven't found a mission like that. I am still looking, and if someone else has in the comments, let me know, but I still haven't found it. It feels like every mission is pretty lengthy and has a lot to it, a lot of waiting points where you're not necessarily going to be able to rip through it just because you have good gear or a good strategy. It feels like there's some that are just going to be long because they're built to be long. Now, obviously they may have different ways built in. There are so many ways to get gear that I haven't even been choosing missions as my gear grind. I've been doing a lot of control points and things like that, trying to get into those loot rooms. And I feel like that actually is a pretty good way. There's, of course, tons of different ways, and I think the Dark Zone is probably going to be my way to go starting today, now that I'm at a point where I feel comfortable. But overall, everything was great. I was very happy with that level of the PvE, where it was the variety, the mission setup, the story. Now, the things I didn't like was kind of how the NPCs behave. I get, like, the cover and the way that they run and their strategies. They don't pop their heads up unless they feel like they have a shot at you. It feels like they're actually pretty smart NPCs. They don't just run right into your bullets. And I don't have a problem with that. I think that's good. But what I don't like is that those NPCs that can throw fire nades, they have 100% accuracy. That might not be a fact, but it sure feels like it. You get hit with those fire nades routinely, and it's very difficult to avoid them. You really don't have any way of doing that. Because even if you're on cover and they throw a flame nade at the other side of your cover, somehow it burns through there and still burns you. And on another point to that is the same faction has suicide bombers that run up to you and blow themselves up and do a huge chunk of damage, plus if you don't shoot them early enough, they blow up right on top of you. It's pretty difficult. Now, those are like my two things, and that's just the NPC behavior, that there's suicide bombers that are really strong, and the flame nades that put you on fire, which in Division 1 wouldn't have been the end of the world, but there's no way to be immune, there's no immune station in this game, and if you get put on fire, it chunks your health really, really quick. So, those are my two only issues. The NPC bosses, they feel great. People who complained about things being too tanky in the last game, in my opinion, I don't think so. I think that everybody was pretty easy to defeat in this game when it came to actual, like, amount of bullets. It just came down to your tactics and using cover more. So, overall, I was very happy with the PvE. I'm not a big PvE player, so I'm more excited to get into the PvP, but I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was quick and easy to understand, and let me know if you agree, disagree, think there's anything I left out, or if you have any questions about the PvE as a whole. But that's it, and I will catch you guys tomorrow. Oh! Did you see?
I gotta go back to my player. You're so far away. Hold on.
Yeah, you're good. I'm coming. No, I'm fine. I juked him. He had me though. He tried to do some fancy feet.
I got that.
out there. Oh my goodness. Hello, Heisman.